Hello and welcome back to What Was That? It's a nice, very, very ultra sunny Saturday afternoon in Delhi. Nitesh, how is life in Bangalore?
Hey Vineet, Bangalore is experiencing Bangalore weather right now. It's really nice.
Nice. Yeah, I sort of missed that about Bangalore.
Yeah, it's
Is it
nice. The
like
infrastructure is crumbling and the food is terrible, but the weather is still great
the food is terrible in general in Bangalore?
in restaurants. Yeah, things have.
But your
I don't
dosa
know.
has one
Sorry,
500 gram. Each of your dosas has like one 500 gram of Amul butter in it. You don't like
no,
that?
we use ghee. We use ghee, not butter. But yeah, I don't know what it is. The general quality of the ingredients has gone down, maybe, or it's all the pressure of keeping up with Zomato and Swiggy, whether it's in deliveries or price wise. I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't enjoy eating out as much as I used to.
So here's a short we're going to make out of this. Nitesh, a long-time Bangalore resident, says Bangalore food is bad. Let us see how much engagement that generates. Story number one, Nitesh.
Let's do that. No, before we get there, a quick update. Last week's episode is surprisingly still relevant. Even the tangents that we went off on. Xiaomi announced an SUV this week, which in silhouette looks exactly like the Ferrari Purosangue. So yeah, and they might start exporting it to other countries soon. Although I don't think it'll come to India. So
Oh,
you
so
can
that's why I
get
saw the headline on, I think, The Verge. I just saw the headline, which
uh-huh.
said Xiaomi's new SUV is a big fuck you to Tesla.
Yeah, it is. But my point specifically is that in silhouette, it looks exactly like the Ferrari SUV, which is a beautiful car for what it is, for that form factor. So that was one. JSW Paints, which we also spoke about last week, are considering doing a reverse merger in which they will merge with Axo India and become listed the other way around. So that's really cool. They've started raising funds. PR is on in like full blast because
Hmm.
all the business media is just gushing about the deal and how awesome it is. So we hit upon a lot of surprisingly relevant topics and they continue to unfold.
Yeah, my story number one is directly a follow-up to last week's story number one. We'll get there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Please.
I am in the process of buying a used JSW car, JSW MG.
MG. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, did not decide to go in for a new Windsor. Just felt
Mm-hmm. That's
add on करके too expensive. So we're buying a used Hector.
I used Hector. And since you're in NCR, I'm guessing it'll be a petrol. And since you live in a metro, I'm guessing it'll be an automatic.
No, it's manual, but it's really cheap.
Okay. Yeah, because the automatic petrol Hector mileage is you need to like uh, make a stop at the petrol bunk every time you step out of home. It's that.
Range anxiety of a different kind.
Buyer beware. That's all I'll say. Uh,
So
anyway,
yeah,
let's get started.
stuff. By the way, our shorts have been exploding. And like
Yeah,
actually, not,
I mean,
our shorts have not been exploding. Our YouTube shorts have been going all over the place. We're getting good numbers. So
uh, how? But social media has warped our sense of numbers so much that you know you sit and think about it. 1,000 views is not a lot, right? Relatively, but that means 1,000 people, or at least 1,000 times something that we spoke about was viewed. Blows my mind.
I don't know a thousand people in life. Well, except on LinkedIn. I don't know you. Most of you on my LinkedIn feed, who are you? This is not just me saying, "Oh, look, I have so many followers that I have no." No, honestly, who are the people on my LinkedIn feed? Genuinely,
Yeah. Take a weekend off and just go down that rabbit hole of finding out if these people actually exist or are they all just bots.
no. It's also how the LinkedIn algo works, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's say I am only connected to one person on LinkedIn whom I know really well, and he likes somebody else's like job update or whatever. I will see
Right.
that in my newsfeed. I don't know that person. So
We forced down your throat. Yeah.
yeah, 90% of my LinkedIn feed is people I don't know, even if I know everyone that I'm connected to.
Hmm.
That's how
That
LinkedIn.
sounds a lot like family functions that I attend. Anyways, let's start story number
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited for today. Uh, where do we start? Okay, let's start with a small history lesson. We know about the Tatas and the Birlas and how they helped in nation building early on, right? There was another figure who was around at this time, but who maybe because he did not have any direct successors, or maybe because of all the conflict that happened afterwards within the family, isn't remembered that well. At least not with the same level of respect and honor that I think he deserves. Seth Walchand Hirachand was an industrialist, philanthropist, entrepreneur from like pre-independence India. He started a bunch of companies, including what became HAL, including Premier Automobiles, which used to assemble the Fiats in India. And another company that he started was Hindustan Construction, which if you look at the Wikipedia page, it's mad. Like they built the first nuclear reactor, they built the first dam of independent India. Just they were building like large scale, what would we call giga scale projects,
Yeah, like you think nation building, your mind immediately goes to stuff like this.
and they were actually
Yeah.
doing that. Uh, but since there was no clear succession, I mean, he didn't have any successors. His brother's family took over, and then with every passing generation, things diverge. Let's put it that way. Especially when there's no patriarch to hold things together.
Yeah.
We really should talk about family business dynamics once. I have personal experience, and it should be fun. But that's for another.
I want a full session on how the term Hindu undivided family even exists as a business term in India.
It's a remnant of a weird uh, policy, and now it's just there. I don't think it'll go away.
Yeah, you can't retract
It's
anything.
enmeshed in the tax code so deeply. But anyways, so the construction part of the business, which is among the many interests of the family, kind of fell into, I wouldn't say complete disrepair, but they were no longer doing like those mega projects. And everybody's focus was on Premier Automobiles because it's a sexy business, right? Making cars. And it's public facing and popular and it's sexy. Anyways, so in the what would be the second generation technically, but I like to think of it as a third generation, or at least two and a half. Ajit Gulabchand, he took control of, as part of the divvying up of the assets of the family that happened. He took control of Hindustan Construction Company when it was not doing much. Let's be honest, and he started executing small projects. At the turn of the century, around 2000, he announced in what was billed as independent India's first new hill station, Lavasa. Name ring a bell?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So this was turn of the century, and we'll talk about everything that happened afterwards. But just at the start, to have the vision to say, okay, even in the 2000s, we were complaining about city infrastructure, right? I just complained about it at the start of this podcast. It's like a pet theme, and it's going to be there for every generation. Every generation thinks that the city is falling apart and it's bursting at the seams. Laughably, people thought that about Bangalore like in 2005, that because of these Infosys and Wipros of the world, too many people are moving here.
I mean, if you looked at Brigade Road in 2005 also, as compared to Brigade Road in 95, well, sure.
Yeah, so the outsider rhetoric was there even then. But anyway, to for somebody who runs a construction company or an infrastructure company, it's got to be that tempting siren song, right? That what if I had a clean sheet of paper and I could envisage a city from like first principles, from the ground up. Nothing exists here. If I had to make a city, how would I make it? And for for vision alone, no matter what happened with the execution, for vision alone, you really have to give it to the man. To think on that scale. In India, which had like kind of come in sync with the global economy for less than a decade then.
Hmm.
Like the reforms happened around 92, 93. So this was just 7 years after that. To think that big on that large scale and say, okay, let's build a city. And it, on paper at least, it was quite well thought out. They focused on aesthetics, they focused on having good landscapes. Like they tried to take the best of uh, all the major world recreational cities. So they had a waterfront like you have in many European cities. In fact, parts of Lavasa were modeled after Portofino in Italy, which is also a Ferrari model. But anyways, uh,
The Xiaomi Portofino, the Xiaomi Lavasa.
the Chinese really need to up their game. No? Xiaomi especially, I don't know why they're naming cars like model numbers of computer hardware. Have sexy names, man.
We should learn from Sony. Sony is
Or
the
from MG.
no, Sony is the best at naming everything. My uh, Sony WH-1000 XM5.
Just rolls off your tongue. That's
Absolutely.
But back to what you were saying. So imagine that, like an Indian city, admittedly elitist, but starting from first principles, having like a waterfront, having world class hotels, having world class educational institutes, and just because that's the challenge, right? Uh, you need to offer enough that people come in on the weekends. It was a short drive from Pune and a slightly longer drive from Mumbai, so location wise it was wonderful. It was in the Western Ghats, so you know climate, weather, rainfall, all of that, like they could do seasons and have themes around it. The location was well chosen, at least for these stated objectives. And so they said, for the Monday to Friday, we will have the educational institutions and people will have retirement homes here. So weekend homes, yes, but also an entire retirement community. And they built it as safe because it was like a large gated community of
Yeah,
sorts.
it's a township. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but a township that wasn't centered around like an industry where you have one pumping heart that all roads lead to. This wasn't like that. This was a recreational township. So it did not have like a center of gravity as such. Uh, Weirdly, one of the I'm kind of burying the lead here, but one of the surviving educational institutions now is Christ University of Bangalore, and they have a thriving campus, and they offer courses there, and they actually have student intake. They have a student body there now
Hmm.
in what is a ghost town. Spoiler alert. But yeah, so early 2000s construction began. It was marketed heavily to the upper middle class of Pune and Mumbai as here's a great home. You can think of it as a weekend home, think of it as an investment, whatever, all the things that developers do even now, right?
Yeah.
For plots outside the city. And they raised the funds that they needed. The NCC put in like their own money and work started. Uh, this might be a little controversial, so I'll choose my words carefully. But you know how when you're trying to raise venture capital, it helps to have a marquee anchor investor so that you can go and say, "Oh, Sequoia is on our is participating in this round, or Sequoia is already on our cap table." It becomes
Deep.
much easier.
You're in for deep trouble if that is true as a founder. Oh God.
Yes, but the cred that earns you helps in subsequent fundraising, right? But anyways, uh, so it helps to have a marquee investor on your cap table, uh, and Lavasa kind of did that for a brief period. They had let me take names since this is on public record. Supriya Sule and her husband
Hmm.
were shareholders of Lavasa. Supriya Sule is, of
Yeah.
course, related to Sharad Pawar, who is a regional big shot and who has played quite a role in even union politics for central politics for the last 30, 40 years. And they were shareholders for a while. So they had an official statement of we have the backing of the powers that be, and that made it easier for them to raise money from banks, from financial institutions, and they had a clear path that we're going to construct this much, and then we're going to sell these many units. That's going to bring us this much money, and then we're also going to do an IPO. There was a clear timetable for this, and they were actually on schedule, at least in the beginning. Then in 2010, the it seems like ancient history now, although it was only 15 years ago. But there was a time when the environmental minister, I think that's what the post was called, Jairam Ramesh.
Hmm.
When did you last hear that name?
On Twitter every day. He's very Twitter.
That's
Why
not.
doesn't he do something about this?
That's I'm not on Twitter. Jairam Ramesh was heading the environmental ministry, and this was like a common complaint that industrialists and builders and everybody had at the time, that all our clearances,
Hmm.
we have got funding is ready, everything is in place, but our environmental clearances are stuck for years, months and years. And Lavasa had the same roadblock. Work was stopped for a year, and that spooked everybody. It spooked buyers, it spooked investors, it spooked all the stakeholders. They're tied up with like all the major hotel brands and the multinational hotel brands. It was like they were just starting to pick up momentum, and to continue the automotive metaphor, they'd just gone from first gear to second gear, and then they drove into a wall. Things just stopped for a year, and afterwards they actually got the necessary clearances, but they had spooked the market. That momentum was gone. The market just kind of slipped away from them. They had to delay and then cancel their IPO, and it, it's been a slowly sinking ship ever since. They went into liquidation, and they have been in liquidation for a while now. Uh, there was a bizarre side story where the group that won the actual first bid to take over whatever is left of the Lavasa company and its assets, they offered like 17 or 18% on what was the total amount that was
Hmm.
owed to the banks. And since there were no other bids, the banks agreed to an 82 or 83% haircut and said, okay, fine, let's just close this chapter, take Lavasa. But the company that won the bid, nobody had heard of it before. They had fudged their net worth statements.
Hmm.
Uh, it turned out that that was a fraud, an outright fraud. And I don't know why they thought they could pull this off. But
Yeah, when has a fraud ever been pulled off successfully?
no, this was weird. It was so in the public eye. Got to admire the audacity. But all that happened was they lost their 25 crores deposit that they had to make to participate in the bid, and nothing else came of it. And another 2 years went by. Now, the reason I bring it up now, although all of this is ancient history, is that there is another round of bids that have come in. This time there are multiple participants, including Welspun, who are the forerunners now, and who will
Hmm.
probably, it looks like from all the chatter that I could find online, will probably get it. So they do also run infrastructure projects. Also, although Welspun is primarily a textile company, but I was surprised in doing the research of just how much of their business now comes from other things, including infrastructure. So well done, Welspun. Uh, they're probably going to get it. They've offered like 800 or so crores for 100 square kilometers in the Western Ghats, and
Wow.
it is contingent on them getting all the environmental clearances.
Hmm.
Uh, have you seen the Abandoned series by Bright Sun Films? Great YouTube channel, great theme. Uh, have you seen any of their videos?
I haven't actually. I should. Sounds
Oh,
amazing.
it's wonderful. So they go to like abandoned malls or abandoned cruise ships, and just great production value. And it's like you can tell the exact moment when activity halted here in this mall, and it became like a ghost town. Lavasa is kind of in limbo. So there are a couple of YouTube videos that I found, the most recent being 8 months old, of YouTubers who actually drove to Lavasa and showed both parts, the part that is a ghost town, and then the Christ University campus, which is surprisingly buzzing and has lots of students. So estimates vary, but there are between 2 and 10,000 people living in Lavasa right now. Bizarrely, this happened not once but twice, and in the same region. Uh, 2 or 3 years after Lavasa, Sahara announced Ambi Valley, which is in the same neighborhood. And there, as best I can tell, it was the reverse. Ambi Valley was doing all right, but because Sahara collapsed, it took Ambi Valley with it. So even there, the government had invited bids. Please, somebody take this over. Nobody took the bait.
Right. Doesn't it just make sense? Like, aren't these like you do business analysis? Aren't these like great deals? Just taking over something that's been sort of abandoned, get it at a haircut. It's already been developed. Of course, there will be a huge cost in bringing it back
That's
up
the
to.
problem. That's the problem. Anecdotally, we have a house in our village back in Rajasthan where I recorded an episode from.
Hmm?
So this street cred is very real, uh, which is closed for like 11 and a half months in a year. And to go back and get it from a shuttered house back to operational takes a week.
Yeah.
I can imagine, I can only imagine how much harder it must be to do that in a township.
Versus doing it greenfield. Isn't it much?
Exactly.
And not because most of the clearances are in place, the land has been acquired, everything's done.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't it just much easier to revive than to do it greenfield and much cheaper?
Honestly, I think all of this just comes back to political backing. That's the variable that news media or business news media doesn't talk about, but it's the
Hmm.
most important one here. The construction company itself, Ajit Gulabchand's company, they have tremendous goodwill. They had tremendous goodwill. Then they built the Bangla Valley ceiling, which is amazing and which was amazing, especially at the time that it was built. Because now those infrastructure projects have become commonplace, but that was the first, and they did it. You know, so they had the chops, they had the cred, they had the knowledge of how to do this. They were even delivering on the execution. They brought stakeholders to the table, the Accor hotels and the Swiss culinary institutes and hotel managements. They convinced Christ University to set up a campus there. They convinced buyers to actually move. There are people actually living in the villas of Lavasa even today, including a few celebrities, bizarrely. But just that hand moving away from them, that saying, yeah, we're here, we've got you. And even this was never said out loud. It was just perception because one file was stuck in one ministry. It's crazy how much damage that did.
Yeah.
So that's it. I'm I wish Welspun or whoever wins the bid all the very best. And for a while, it was a Lavasa and Ambi Valley were legit weekend destinations for family that I know in Pune and Mumbai who actually drove down there. And the drive was wonderful. The infrastructure was great. For a brief moment, you had an actual township where everything worked, where the water was clean, the air was clean, the streets were wide, there was systematic parking, and everything worked. And if they can get it back to that, it will be wonderful. It will set the template for more such projects in the next 20, 30, 50 years. Wonderful. We need more of them. That's my story. Thoughts?
Interesting times. My story number one is a follow up from last time when we discussed that book, Apple in China, and
Hmm.
where it ended on the note that Apple is fairly stuck from multiple perspectives. They are way too over reliant on China in terms of their supply chain. So much R&D, so much work is happening there. So every phone anywhere that they make anywhere in the world is dependent on their China supply chain. Even if they're trying to do some stuff in the US, in their fab, whether they're trying to assemble in Brazil, whether they're trying to assemble in India and now manufacture more in India, it still relies on their supply chain in China. And the book actually ended with like Tim Cook is trying to reduce its reliance on China by moving more and more to India. They experimented a lot with Vietnam. Some parts it worked, some parts it didn't. Vietnam also doesn't have the scale that Apple needs. India, they did see a place where they could, and also politically a bit more predictable, right, and manageable. And they were worried that there would be pushback from China. That pushback has come. China is now has asked or told, as China does, Foxconn to move a lot of its senior management back from India to China. And it has also told, this is as per Bloomberg reporting, it's also told BYD management to move a lot of people from elsewhere in Southeast Asia, where they are exploring other manufacturing setups, back to China. And it says the bulk of Foxconn's Chinese staff at iPhone plants in southern India have been told to fly back. Move began about 2 months ago. More than 300 Chinese workers have already left, and mostly support staff from Taiwan remain in India. So it's very hush hush because obviously, like we were discussing, Foxconn is very, very deeply enmeshed with Apple right now. So they are, of course, fully in China. Mostly, like they're based in China, right? Foxconn is a Chinese company now. So nobody is really talking much about it. Apple obviously will also not talk about it because they are going to be scared, right? What does this mean? They are trying to de-risk and de-link from China, and China is now, sorry, boss. So yeah, this was going to happen at some point. We don't know yet how big this is and how serious this is. But Apple's been trying to move a lot of its iPhone 17 production to India. So this is going to be a big challenge. And it actually reminds me of the question you asked me last week. Can this be done at this scale, at this cost, anywhere else in the world?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, too many factors coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, maybe we don't deserve those $600 or $800 very, very fancy phones, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of pushback, and in the next 2-3 years, costs are going to go up. Or we are back in the situation where Apple is just all in on China, and how that plays out with American politics. There's interesting times ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a small story in that sense, but it's obviously caused a lot of
Yeah, of course.
kerfuffle.
From an Indian perspective, it, like you said, China won't talk about it, Foxconn can't talk about it, Apple will try not even to acknowledge these developments. It's the same here as well, right? The narrative that is being woven in India, in Vietnam, in Mexico is that we are part of the Apple supply chain, we are part of the iPhone supply chain, and good things are just down the road. So yes, all we're doing now is assembly, but we're gradually going to move up the value chain. All those phrases that are thrown around.
No, but also that is how things started in China also.
At that time, there was nobody else to stop this from happening in China, right? You didn't have a counterweight
Hmm.
to prevent that knowledge transfer from happening. Like the equivalent would be if at the time that Apple was training uh, the Chinese to make better phones and have better supply chains, if the US had pushed back and said, no, don't do this knowledge transfer, then China wouldn't have become China, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the same way, there is no there is now an obstruction, and it's not a small obstacle, right? So like this AirPods, AirPod cases, AirPod case, the shell, the plastic shell of the AirPod has just started being made here in India. Just the case and just the plastic clamshell. not the rest of it. None of the connectors, none of the chips, no, not the battery, none of that. Just that has just started. Production has just started for that in India, and that is injection molded plastic. It's a 50, 60-year old technology. There's nothing
Agreed.
outright
Agreed.
sophisticated about it.
But
So,
as things happened in China also, right,
mhm.
with the whole Apple supply chain, you start small and then suddenly because everything is so deeply interlinked and the time pressures, right? So, okay, I'll take another example. Why the fab experiment is not working out so well for Apple right now?
Mhm.
Because the engineers there say, oh, instead of this, let's try this part instead, right? In China, that means that part could be an hour away. You just drive down and get a sample, right? Or they'll make it by tomorrow. In the US, that's a 6 week thing.
Mm.
So it just can't happen. So the time pressures mean you end up, and how it happened in China is okay, why don't we just build a supply chain for this part also and this part also, and then start building this part? So once it properly takes off, if there is intent and if there is business intent, like in defense, right? We haven't really seen too much defense manufacturing for the longest time. Right now, it does, from what I hear, it does seem to be increasing a lot. Like that push has to be there.
Indian defense manufacturing.
Yeah,
Oh, we really should do just an hour-long episode
we
about
should. We should
about
because like
all the amazing things that listed Indian companies are doing in drone warfare, in manufacturing motor shells, and so because these are listed companies, of course there are parts that are confidential and aren't shared even in uh, the most basic documents, but there is still you still do get visibility into just how much money and intent is behind that push of no, we need this is strategically important, and we need it to be here. We need to be able to make these things, these drones, these motor shells, these guns in within our borders. Very cool, very cool story. I'm glad you touched upon that. Like I'm not sure if I should do like a 4 5,000 word piece on this, or we should just talk about it for an hour. There's that much material there, and so many different stories are playing out concurrently.
yeah, let's do that. Let's do an episode. Absolutely.
Very cool. And this is all public domain, so
And that's how it spreads, right? Exactly that. Like it takes 10 years to get something going, and then suddenly, if 10 years down, like this is what everyone's told me about running a business or running my startup also. Just figure out how to survive for 5 years. And then something will take off. This one project will take off, it'll get you here. Then this happens. The happenstance starts kicking in. So, for example, the same article, read out one paragraph. Chinese managers have been critical in training Foxconn staff in India. India began assembling iPhones at scale just 4 years ago. Now accounts for a fifth of the global output. I'm guessing that's assembly and not manufacturing, right?
yeah.
For whatever either, right? Foxconn is asking its suppliers to convert some machinery so that it can be operated by Indian employees. Existing machinery largely runs on Chinese language software, so it will need to be retrofitted to be used by engineers and other workers who speak English. The orders for this have already been given, and the machines will be delivered to Foxconn in a few months. So this is exactly what's happening, right? So the machines are coming in from China. Indian operators are going to learn how to use these. Then they will go out. They'll be poached by other Indian companies,
Mhm.
and those machines will come in, and suddenly we might have an Indian manufacturer, like an actual Micromax, what it wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, it just might take off, and unless China decides to put a stop to all of it. So this
Mhm.
is how China got to where it was. A lot of times, TOT doesn't happen. It's like I spent 7 years in defense. Uh, I saw how much of the offset manufacturing in India
Mhm.
was a fair bit of a sham in a lot of companies.
Yeah.
A lot of foreign companies did not want to do any genuine transfer of technology.
Yeah.
Right. But in other areas, if there is a business motive linked to it, like how Apple went to China because of saving so much money, and if now it wants to de-risk from China and it decides it should, that push could just happen and be relevant unless let's see what happens.
Bangalore metro, the yellow line
Hmm.
is the rail is ready, like the track is ready, uh, but the project is delayed or the launch is delayed because the trains haven't come yet. The actual wagons, those haven't come yet. The bid was won by a Chinese company, but that was before Galwan, I think. So before 2020 and before COVID, they won the bid, and then afterwards, the government just blacklisted many companies, including the specific Chinese company that won the bid. And so, while construction has gone on here, and to my knowledge, the track is ready, the entire stretch, but they just couldn't start because they didn't have the actual trains. So finally, a middle path was found. There's a listed Indian company called Titagarh Rail Wagons, if I remember correctly. They tied up with the Chinese company. They said we'll manufacture here. They already manufacture aluminum coaches for Pune Metro, but
Hmm.
this was stainless steel. Bangalore uses stainless steel. So knowledge transfer happened, and the first coaches have been assembled. I think, I'm not sure, assembled in the Titagarh plant. And so definitely some knowledge transfer happened there, even if it was just assembly. Although I think it was maybe assembly and a little deeper, I think.
Yeah, it's that like I think every case has become so uniquely different. There is so much of sham happening. Like worst case being the Tatra trucks. Remember that scam from like 10 years ago or something, where there's so much round tripping happening that something made abroad
Hmm.
is going through Hong Kong and some shell companies and going back there and then coming from Ukraine or somewhere
Yeah.
to an Indian PSU and being sold at what 5x the price, right? Versus genuine cases of TOT happening and starting with assembly and then moving into subcomponents. So yeah, both, bit of both.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Even if we succeed or India succeeds in part in becoming, part of the iPhone specifically and Apple in general supply chain, even if it is for like sub components for now or even in the next 5 years, it's an absolute win. Absolutely. So yeah, I do hope that that happens.
So long as we don't go the full Chinese way and lose all labor protections.
Let's see if one is possible without the other.
One, well, one is possible with the both are possible simultaneously, but price goes up.
Which the market might not be willing to bear.
Yes. Story number two.
Yeah, so since my story one was literally about a ghost town, I wanted the second story to be a little optimistic and upbeat.
We're
I
all gonna die, aren't we? I hate your optimistic stories.
no, I'm curious if we can somehow make this dark. I don't think we'll be able to.
Challenge
It
accepted.
it has chocolates in it. I don't think we can find a way to ruin it. Uh,
Challenge accepted. Let's go.
I I believe this has been true for a while, but Bloomberg finally formally declared it. Roger Federer is now a billionaire. First, wonderful, self-made man, pro athlete is a billionaire. Great, right? I mean, how does this affect us? It's a great story. Uh, Less than 10% of his 1.3 billion stated or estimated net worth came from winnings from matches, which
Hmm.
itself more than $100 million in match winnings is that's generational wealth, right? And that's just the money he won on the court. But apart from that, endorsements, obviously big source of income. Uh, Federer is unique in that he's always had a staid image as a brand ambassador. His partnerships with brands have lasted for decades, if not longer, and he's had this squeaky clean image, unlike say Tiger Woods, and everything that happened in between there. He
But
he doesn't change sponsors quickly. He doesn't start new deals or new endorsements quickly.
yeah,
Just the most conservative. Like if this was a fund manager, I would blindly trust him with my money, for just how conservative uh, Roger Federer, the person, has been of in managing Roger Federer, the brand. And incidentally, after having an agent and paying commission for the longest time, Federer started his own talent management agency 10 years back or so, which was, I think, his first entrepreneurial venture. And it's doing quite well. They have a nice roster of athletes. They've started a few tennis leagues in partnership with other associations, I think, or other stakeholders. I don't know. But they've done good work there. And all of his endorsements, like Rolex, like Lindt chocolates, that's the chocolate mentioned. He's shown an affinity for Swiss brands, and all Swiss brands have this in common, right? They are in diverse industries, but there's like you have made in Japan, which today means something. It means either artisanal or high tech.
Hmm.
Made in Switzerland, not as mainstream, but has like its own connotations because of the watches, because of the chocolates. Uh, so he's been Swiss first in his endorsement deals, which is wonderful. It wasn't Mera Switzerland Mahan, but it was always let's try and support Swiss brands. Not that Rolex or Lindt needed his support particularly, but it has been a decade-long, multi-decadal relationship, which I admire because athletes tend to jump quite quickly, especially Indian athletes. Uh, 5 years back, he okay. So the core uh, source of income in endorsements for many athletes is the sportswear brand, maybe the sneaker brand, or in general the athletics brand that they partner with, like Nike or Adidas or Under Armour or whoever. And Roger Federer, for like I think first 20 years, was a Nike man. And weirdly, when the contract came up for renewal in the late 2010s, he this was after a few years of having run his talent management agency. I think he saw an opportunity. He did not renew with Nike and instead tried up with Uniqlo, which is like a fast fashion brand, right?
Yeah.
Sort of, not exactly that, but sort of. So unusual. Uniqlo did not have sneakers, even more unusual. So he continued wearing Nike sneakers, and I think that part of the deal was intact until he tied up with, invested in, and started wearing a Swiss brand of sneakers, which I didn't even know that the Swiss made sneakers
Yeah.
or had homemade brand. It's called On, and he took a 3% stake. I'm guessing it was one of those endorsement for equity deals, or maybe he actually put in money. I don't know. I didn't dig deep enough, but yeah. So he owns 3% of the company, and it is now listed. And that 3% stake alone is worth $500 million as of last week. A Swiss sneaker brand, which is positioned as like a premium
Nitesh, we've
brand.
been doing this for 3 months now.
Uh-huh.
4 months. When do we cash in and when do we sell out? What's going on, Nitesh?
That comes afterwards. First, you build an audience, then you betray
I
the
have put
audience.
in 4 months of effort. What more do you want? 4 months.
If any brand managers are watching this and want to see Vinny do a mukbang challenge, please DM.
Brand managers are watching. I am Soham Parikh. I am Soham Parikh.
This is one of the 6 things you do every day. So yeah, that's my story. Federer's retired from tennis. I really think that he should shed his conservatism and sign up and do the Arbaz Khan biopic. He was born to play that role. Yeah, I love the guy. I don't follow tennis, not really much of a sports person, but in terms of strategy, in terms of managing his own brand, in terms of keeping things clean while also having such strong brand values of his personal brand, brilliant.
No, I agree. I agree. I could not figure a negative, pessimistic take on that. Like, honestly, I don't care that he's become a billionaire. Yeah, okay, good for him, right? He doesn't need me
Hmm.
to care. He has $1 billion with him. But yeah, the man genuinely seems like such a great guy and such a nice guy and open, like is it like open about who he is and his friendship with Nadal, just generally not being an asshole.
Yeah.
But yeah, you genuinely don't see too many rich people who don't turn into assholes. It's very hard to
Yeah.
find. Fame has that thing, right? Fame and like I can't even imagine running a company with 5,000 people, paying them good salaries, right? Being a big brand name company. Everyone's just going to say yes to you all the time. How
Yeah.
do you not become an asshole with all that power? Can't be easy.
Yeah. I mean, our YouTube shorts have got 1,000 views, and already I've unfollowed so many of my friends on Instagram.
With great power comes great responsibility.
To not be an asshole, yeah, I don't think we're going to pass that test.
Sell out. I'll be nice. Somebody help me sell out.
On also has their like they've tightly integrated their Swissness into the product. Like Victorinox Swiss knives, even on sneakers carry a small Swiss flag label on them, and athletic brands have an interesting challenge, like with Nike, like with Onitsuka Tigers before them. They start being the sports person's choice, the athlete's choice. That's what gets them the street cred, right? But that's not where the money is. The money comes from going mainstream, but it has to be calibrated. You cannot just start selling everything to everybody all at once, because you're going to dilute your brand.
Yeah.
And the first thing that's going to happen is your athletes, your core audience who gives you your identity and your cred, they'll be the first ones to leave. You don't want that. You want them to stay on, even if it means paying them hefty sums, which is the Nike play. It's an interesting balance of having to be just mainstream enough to make those mad pots of money, while because these sneakers are made in Vietnam, they're made in Indonesia, they don't cost all that much to make, right? Especially given how sophisticated the Vietnamese supply chain is. For example, for footwear, those are the first industries that came up there. It blows your mind how much of ecosystem building happened. That was the first wave of manufacturing in Vietnam, was footwear, and you could just go there and come back in a week and have a full range of running shoes of different sophisticated soles and technologies, and really the pinnacle of material science, at least in foam, in shock absorption. You could launch your brand in a week. That's how sophisticated they are. So anyways, it doesn't cost that much. The hard part is managing the brand, and even in that, the hard part is maintaining that balance of being credible while still being mainstream.
Yeah, but eventually they're all just marketing companies, aren't they? Exactly as you're saying,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
what is so
Yeah.
different in the technology of the shoe?
They all have different names, but it's the 19 base ka antar.
Hmm.
And the industry moves so fast that Nike introduced carbon fiber inserts, and within 3 months, every brand had them. It's the same thing, right? And as can I call myself a runner? Yeah, sure. Why not? Who's going to stop me? As a runner, the shoes only take you so far. Ah, nice. It's the running itself, right? It's the getting up and
Yeah.
braving the fucking weather and doing the running that counts. But the shoes matter. They're status symbols. They give you if they give you a mental edge of if I wear these Asics, I'm going to run that much quicker, shave off a minute of my time, whether it's placebo or not. Yeah, it's great. And on specifically has been built entirely on recreational runners, the runners specifically. That's like the core audience, people who run recreational, while still having Roger Federer and the athlete cred.
Which is all brand, right? I will go after this persona. It's all brand.
Yeah.
Like So I bought a pair of Asics, even though I don't run. Yeah, I will run. It did not succeed. I blame the shoes. But yeah, they're fantastic. But I'm guessing if I buy an equivalent pair from one of 10 companies, they'll all be equally fantastic.
Yeah, there you have it. Happy story, happy ending. We made it.
We made it.
What's your next story?
My story number 2 is lots of shenanigans going on in the AI space. And all seem to be converging towards the bubble in my head is about to pop. For example, one part of it is the interviews that these guys have been giving. And LLMs are now in the public consciousness 3 years old almost. GPT-3 came out, I think, October, November 22. So 2.5 years. And we've discussed this before, right? We disagreed on this point last week about the use cases and the impact that they could have. So Sam Altman sat down for an interview with his brother for a podcast, and they got into some stuff about what AI is going to lead to. And this is some of the stuff he was saying. I think there will be incredible other products. There will be crazy new social experiences. There will be like Google Docs style AI workflows that are just way more productive. You'll start to see, you'll have these virtual employees. But the thing that I think will be most impactful on that 5 to 10 year time frame is AI will actually discover new science. And when asked why he believes AI will discover new science, I think we've cracked reasoning in the models. We've got a long way to go. I think we know what to do. Our model is already pretty smart, and people are saying, wow, this is like a good PhD. There is a follow-up question that his brother actually asks. Reasoning will lead to science going faster or just new stuff? And Sam Altman says, I mean, you already hear scientists who say they're faster with AI. Global, right? As global. You already hear scientists who say they are faster. What does faster even mean? Like we don't have AI maybe autonomously doing science, but if a human scientist is 3 times as productive using O3, that's a big deal. Like it's gotten into the territory where no one is asking what any of these things even mean. What does productive mean for a scientist? What does doing science mean? Doing science. What does this is like a pretty good PhD? What does pretty good PhD mean? What is a pretty good PhD? I know a lot of PhDs from JNU. Some of you are amazing people. Some of you not so much. What is a pretty good PhD?
Scientific output can be measured, no?
Yeah,
Dubious,
what
but
is this measurement?
can
Where
be
is
measured.
measurement when it comes to LLMs and AI? Where is this measurement? There's just this is more like, yeah, we're doing science, bro. Let's do more science. Let's do faster science, bro. There is more. Sam Altman says, and then as that keeps going, and the AI can autonomously do some science, figure out novel physics. What is going on? These people have no clue what they're talking about. Do some science. This is all tech, bro. Jack Altman asks, is all that happening as a co-pilot right now? Genuine question, because co-pilot is a buzzword now. So I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not. You definitely can't go say like, hey, ChatGPT, figure out new physics and expect that to work. So it is currently co-pilot like, but I've heard like anecdotal reports from biologists where it's like, wow, it really did figure out an idea. This is all junk. This is all, no one has any clue what they're talking about, and no one's questioning these people. There are no specifics. Yes, valid question. Science can be defined, right? Progress in science. Why is no one pulling that out? Satya Nadella also, he had an interview getting into. Okay, let's go there because this is an actual sort of an interview, right? The question was, how do you get to $130 billion in AI revenue through AGI?
Mhm.
Satya Nadella is like, the way I come at it, it's a great question because at some level, if you're going to have this explosion, abundance, whatever commodity of intelligence available, the first thing we have to observe is GDP growth. Okay, so that's a bold vision right there, right? For you've got all this AI, you've got this amazing godlike technology, GDP
Yeah.
growth, baby. So the first thing we have to do when we say this is like the industrial revolution, let's have that industrial revolution type of growth. That means to be 10%, 7%, 5%. That's the
Right.
real market. It can't just be supply side. Suddenly
Yeah.
productivity goes up and the economy is growing at a faster rate. But that's to me the moment us self-claiming some AGI milestone, that's just nonsensical benchmark hacking to me. So asking for benchmarks is nonsensical. Unless you just randomly say, oh, GDP will grow at 10%, 5%, 7%. That's AGI. What is going on here? Bubble popping. The next part is the salaries that are going insane. There are crazy hires going on. So Meta woke up a couple of months ago and decided that their GPT model, Llama, nobody cares about it. Absolutely no one cares about it. No one's really, and when I say no one, I mean outside of a small number because these are huge investments and right, millions of people are not using it. So then Mark Zuckerberg decides that he needs to do something about it. And since he couldn't go greenfield, he decided to acquire. So he tried to buy out Perplexity, which is a research focused LLM.
Right.
He then reportedly tried to buy this AI video startup called Runway, failed apparently. He tried to buy. So, one of the people who left OpenAI, Ilya Sutskever, I hope I'm pronouncing his surname correctly.
Mm-hmm.
He left it after that coup that happened in 2023
He
end.
was chairman of the board, no?
He was on the board. I'm not sure if he was
Mhm.
chairman.
Right.
He left after Microsoft engineered bringing Sam Altman back.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Microsoft engineered bringing Sam Altman back. So it's still very shady. And the tech news is not reporting on it.
We'll
So
find out in 20 years.
you'll find out in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. So he left to start a few months late after that. So about a year ago, roughly, started an AI company called Safe Superintelligence. Because the coup happened because the board was feeling that Sam Altman's approach is going to lead us to death, danger, right? Non-controlled AI. So he started a company called Safe Superintelligence. It is. It has said publicly that it's a lab. It will not come out with any AI products for a long time. Don't even ask us.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing money at us. It is apparently valued at $32 billion. Without a product, without a roadmap, without anything. $32 billion. Facebook tried to buy it out because Facebook has all the money in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And decided to buy it out just to basically poach people.
Yeah.
So Ilya Sutskever refused. So then Zuckerberg tried to recruit the startup's CEO and co-founder, Daniel Gross.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to hire him. And then Meta bought a company called Scale AI. No, it is not buying Scale AI. It is investing money into Scale AI, $14.3 billion into this company. And as part of that investment, the founder leaves the startup to join Meta.
Okay.
So imagine, we love this guy so much that we're pumping money into his company, but as part of that deal, he has to leave the company and come work for us. So much confidence in that company, no? $14 billion. And they will make
They couldn't possibly have justified paying that much to hire one guy, and it would have set a bad precedent, no, for future hires. That no, that's the number I aspire to.
$14 billion. Who's buying us
Yeah.
out for $14 billion? Sorry, co-founders, if anyone offers me $14 billion, I'm walking out of my store.
5 billion million भी काफी है.
Now we're just haggling over the price, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, and Meta has been throwing around money at people also, like we discussed last week, sending out $100 million checks. accosting people. Ajao, ajao, ajao. $100 million sign up bonus, total commitment of at least $300 million over the next 2-3 years to bring superstar AI coders or AI engineers or AI leaders, whatever, into the fold.
My
So OpenAI didn't come.
I see your hypothesis. A lot of excellent writing came out from when the internet bubble popped. Wonderful books. Many of them had the same theme, and many of them were written by people who were actually there and watched these companies implode. I remember one called Boomtown. I don't remember who the author is. Uh, I read it in the late 2000s, so around the global financial crisis, and it it was the same story of all the things that you just pointed out, of excess, of hype building, of insane sums of money being paid for seemingly nothings. Uh, it definitely rhymes. What you're saying and what those accounts were of that time of late 2000, the year specifically late 2000, what it was like being behind the scenes of these internet companies then. Very, very similar. So yeah, on that count, yes. But counterpoint, when Zuckerberg acquired Instagram, when he acquired Facebook, both times the sums were so mind-boggling that it felt like he's lost it, like maybe he was bamboozled by these guys, or maybe he's just a kid and who's been given the keys to the treasury basically. Here, go do whatever you want. But in hindsight, both were wonderful acquisitions. And even if one out of the 10, let's say, that of these acquisitions that happen now, if even one out of these 10 pay off in 5 years time, they'll
No,
more than cover up
no. So
the
agree,
expense.
agree that Meta has made some fantastic acquisitions.
Yeah.
And the guy's got a business brain. But that doesn't mean that all acquisitions and
Absolutely. Yeah.
everything becomes sort of justified, right?
Yeah.
He named his company after the metaverse. How's that going for him? So
So he regrets that. Yeah.
that is there. And secondly, one-off acquisitions, absolutely. There is a strategic expanding into new areas. Sure. Zuckerberg might still, I don't know what making this work would mean. Right, because Instagram and WhatsApp worked because he integrated them fairly well with the Facebook. Threads is pretty much failed.
Hmm.
Also ran of the fourth or fifth order.
Yeah.
Right. This is I don't think that has anything to do with the fact that this whole industry or around AI is a fair bit of a bubble right now and talking and sounding like a bubble. Zuckerberg making an investment work.
Hmm.
Yeah, sure, maybe this could work if I don't even know how AI is to be. It's a like in my head, AI is a great B2B tool, B2B enterprise tool.
Yeah.
Right. What's a good PE for a B2B enterprise tool?
6, 8 times free cash flow. That's all I would pay for a SaaS tool.
Yeah. So what about a B2B enterprise tool that promises to do a lot more in 6 years? What's a good
Double it. Not more than that.
so 12x?
Yeah. I
Right
would
now,
be good. More than that.
OpenAI is now they've said they have an ARR of 10 billion, which probably means they hit 80 million in the last month of revenue, right?
Yeah.
So say they closes here at 7 billion when spending about 20, right? And a lot of research cost comes with the territories, not just capex from a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
What's a reasonable valuation for that?
Oh. No. ventures not my strong suit, because the problem is you need to factor in another 7 years of negative cash flows, and then from the eighth and ninth year you have presumably that hockey stick of, see that we're gonna have 40-50 billion dollars of free cash flow every year.
Hmm.
7 years from now, 8 years from now, how do you discount that back? No, I'm not comfortable making that valuation. I'm not at
And when,
even
yeah, but
very
when,
high
when
discount
the
rate.
IO thing happened, it was 3 weeks ago, right? Johnny Ivanov. Sam Goldman randomly throws around that, okay, this will add $1 trillion of value to OpenAI. And there's no pushback. And again, if you see what's happening in this industry, these people are not really buying companies,
Hmm.
they are buying people.
Yeah.
That is a bubble. That is absolutely a bubble. You're setting up a team, great, you're paying good salaries, sure, absolutely. But bringing in one superstar and thinking that this will turn things around, he invested $14.3 billion not to buy this company, but to buy off the CEO. That's a $14 billion investment into a person,
Yeah.
effectively. That is absolutely a bubble.
You know where I was wondering what this reminds me of. The exact same dynamic played out 5-6 years back in the, what phrase can I use for them without it being derogatory? The coaching institutes of Kota.
Yeah.
They all had this year or so of intense acquisitions and bringing on superstar instructors who would in a week's time be poached by somebody else with ridiculous signing bonuses and Mercedes cars and apartments and everything thrown in, and that bubble definitely popped. So there was a business, but the valuations got far ahead of the business, and in that atmosphere all the things that were already happening with students got exacerbated, and that's why you have regulation of what kind of fan you can put in a hostel in Kota, which
Yeah.
how are we okay with that? How? But anyways, yeah, so these excesses happen all the time, and it's a part of the evolution of the industry. And so if you are right and the bubble is going to pop, good, let it.
Hmm.
Very nice. And then from the debris, legitimate businesses will emerge in 3, 4, 5 years time,
Yep.
and at least some of the names that are so hallowed now will be vilified, and that's what the business media does, right?
I don't think vilification really happens, other than Elizabeth Holmes,
Hmm.
who's been vilified from the last 25 years of bubbles. SBF went to jail, sure. Anyone who goes to jail is retroactively vilified. That's about that. But 99.9% of people don't go to jail.
But at least, okay, if not that, you're going to see when the third act happens of redemption, at least then there's going to be acknowledgement of, oh, after the bubble popped, nobody would even talk to me. I wasn't even able to get a tea time, things like that. You know, that
Rahul,
I had those are the years of my struggle in the wilderness.
Rahul Yadav,
Yeah, he's
they'll all get rehabilitated and get more funding. Vilification does not happen. Vilification for randomly throwing whatever shit to see what sticks and getting people to invest on that basis.
Mhm.
That don't happen at all. It is even in hindsight. Like, where is IO now? 3 weeks down, which is another very funny story. They don't. That page has disappeared for some trademark lawsuit reason, but yeah,
Yeah, no
that's
one cares.
story of it.
No one cares. It's
No
okay.
one cares.
Yeah.
But a figure of $1 trillion was thrown in there and forgotten.
And there was no pushback from all the journalists mentioned. Uh, I have been feeling this in researching stories, because I'll whenever you pick a story like Lavasa today, you go back and it's the same media outlets who were so enthusiastic about Lavasa when it was launched,
Mhm.
and who were so pessimistic when things got in trouble. You see these the same news outlets, and they're constantly riding the wave. You know, they're overselling the optimism, overselling the pessimism, and in at least in the case of listed companies, they tend to make the stock price a lot more volatile than it needs to be. It's
Yep.
it's senseless. Just how much, and the cycle, like it feeds on itself, and so you'll have ridiculous valuations in one direction, and then when correction happens, an overcorrection happens, and that causes panic. People dump their stocks. I don't know. I'm starting to get disenchanted with the Bloombergs and the business standards of the world.
They're all the same. Like the Forbes 30 under 30 is a good sign of who's probably going to
Yeah, no,
who's
but when you do like when you construct a timeline of any story, successful, unsuccessful, whatever, I can almost see now the beats, of okay, hype, probably PR. Uh, okay, this person is now like on the in the national psyche, at least from on the business stage, and then, oh, here a narrative building has started, and so you're setting up for a downfall here, and oh, here there's a redemption arc forming here now. So predictable, those waves. Yeah.
the same New York Times reporters who were massively hyping up the metaverse,
Hmm.
massively hyping up blockchain,
Yeah,
massively hyping up NFTs, are now massively hyping up AI. There is no retribution to chodo. There is
accountability.
no accountability at all.
Yeah, and
Why should I
it's more.
believe you were hyping up that technology that just completely popped?
Yeah,
And like crypto led to a lot of wasted money for a lot of people, right?
yeah,
Not just VCs, but pension funds.
yeah,
There's zero accountability. There's zero looking back.
yeah. The reason there's no accountability is because nobody is reading past articles. Nobody is trying to make a timeline of here are all the things you, a specific journalist, you said about this company. How do you change your opinion about this company and this person every 2 years? Why is it the God's gift to humanity this year, and in 2 years' time, it's the worst, most despicable thing to ever have existed? And in 2 years, again, it is God's gift to humanity. How?
Yep.
Maybe we weren't along for the ride, but you were there, right? For both the 180-degree turns. Don't you feel anything?
I guess not.
Yeah.
That's
No,
my
fucking,
history. Yeah, I had to
I,
bring it to a pessimistic note. I
no,
could.
I don't want to end on this note. This is still going to be old man raging at the clouds, but there is a trend, or there was a trend, say 10, 15 years back, of startups naming themselves after things from the Lord of the Rings.
Oh God.
Like, uh, yeah, Shadowfax, which is a logistics company and is also the name of Gandalf's legendary horse. Are you into the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Okay,
Very much so.
so you know who Shadowfax is. Shadowfax is a logistics company here in India. Uh, Palantir, obviously the most successful one so far. Which, okay, I'll give them points for self-awareness in naming them after one of Sauron's high-tech and most cruel weapons of surveillance. Naming your company that, brave, surprisingly self-aware. All right. There have been venture funds, I think, or hedge fund called Mithril Capital,
Hmm.
although I couldn't find it. I don't know. Okay, so I guess you are a Lord of the Rings fan, and you were starting a company, and there was a thematic resonance, and so you picked a name from your favorite book or movie. Please don't. Please don't. There's a security tech company called Anduril, named
Yeah.
after Aragorn's sword. That sword is sacred. Okay, it was forged from the shards of Narsil. You don't get to use that name. Don't. Okay, just yeah, that's my not even story, just rant. Don't take names from the Lord of the Rings and name your shitty companies after them. Okay, you are
Yeah.
inevitably, if you survive long enough, going to go and do incredibly cruel and evil things. Do them, I don't care. Don't use these names.
So yeah, so the latest that came up this week, Erebor. Erebor is Peter Thiel backed. How's this for self-awareness? It is a hoard of wealth in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, which is I am reading now. It is in the Lonely Mountain, and it is a hoard of wealth for the dwarves.
Yeah, well,
Erebor is just a hoard of wealth now with the Peter Thiel backing. So
well,
yet more Lord of the Rings. And
it,
exactly every time they do it, it just feels like they're stabbing you. Let something remain pure. You are evil people. Peter Thiel, there's no other way to put it. You see that interview Peter Thiel did with Ross Douthat of the New York Times.
mhm.
Ross Douthat asks him, "Do you believe humanity should sustain?" Simple question, right?
Yeah.
And Peter Thiel is like, and Ross Douthat is like, "Do you believe humanity should sustain?" It's a simple question. Well, there are these. There is abundance. There is Mars. There is. He doesn't answer the
Mhm.
question. And I am a sort of, like we're destroying the world, but even I believe humanity should sustain in better ways. Sure, Peter Thiel,
Uh-huh.
billionaire who backed Donald Trump, billionaire who's best friends with Elon Musk, is like, are you sure? So yeah, and these people are then
Maybe he subscribes to Agent Smith's philosophy.
which
He's
is
just trying to heal the planet. That's one possibility.
sort
Maybe he's a subscriber to Thanos's philosophy that, yeah, sure, but not so many of us. Maybe if there were fewer
of
of us.
like COVID time. I was like, so right, immediately pre-COVID, I was like, yeah, maybe Thanos was right. We are overstressing the world. And
So
COVID
this,
happened, and people in Delta wave had it. Oh God, no, 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 oh God.
yeah, because it is random and cruel and never the people you want, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, so just in closing, I am rereading The Lord of the Rings. I just stayed up till 1 last night because how do you stop in the middle of the Mines of Moria chapter? You can't, right? So you do the entire 3 chapters, 2.5 in one go, and so yeah, just don't, please. For any
I just
aspiring founders, no matter how lofty your goal, just name it after whatever else you want. Leave the Lord of the Rings alone.
I would agree with that sentiment. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about that.
All right then. This has been a nice long episode, which will obviously be shortened and cut.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in.
See you
Nitesh.
next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.